All right, you know what it is. That's right. Tat Wza here. Doing a Tat Talks, and a lot of the buzz going around, obviously on the internet, is about AI, artificial intelligence. So there's only one place that I could go to really find out about AI and all of the things that's going on, and I'm able to talk to him not just today, but a few different times. We're going to talk to different people, and we're really going to get to the bottom of what's going on and where it's going, and maybe hopefully give you some education so the fears that you may or may not have completely go away. Let me first introduce my brother, Abran Maldonado. My brother, how are you today?
What's good, family? It's been a minute. We've been on this for a while. We got to let people know that we saw this coming, but from jump we want to do this for the culture. So I'm just happy to be here, brother.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Now, so speaking of that, real quick, right? People know sometimes I talk to people in tech, but you and I have a different relationship. You and I go back to the original days of the Hot 97 street team. So there's a really long time going on of knowing each other.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I don't think people realize that when they see me doing the tech stuff out here, that like we've been out here. We were out here. We've seen all of these eras kind of happen. We were around when Louis backpack, pink polo, Kanye was running around doing like SOB shows and hitting up street team shows. We were there before Ebro.
That's a
You
fact.
know?
That's a fact. That's a
I,
big.
I remember when Ebro first showed up. I was in the building.
All right. So, all right. Now, I want to give you your proper introduction, right? So give me a second. I put it together. We met 20 years ago, like I said, or more than. I was gonna ask you for a wild street team story, but we'll hold up on that. I
We
don't
got
want
a
to
lot, so we could drop those periodically for sure.
periodically. Yep, yep. All right. So just to give people reference, right? Because we mentioned street team and knowing, but let's let them know who you really are, right? You've been doing your thing for a long time. You're a scholar. You're holding degrees from St. John's University, Columbia University's Teachers College, and reached doctoral candidate status at NYC Steinhardt. That is like exceptional, aside from all of the AI stuff that you're doing. Congratulations.
Appreciate
But
it.
wait, I'm not finished. All right. Associate Director of NYC Media Labs and Verizon's 5G
Director now,
Ed
not to plug shamelessly, but director now over there.
Director now. Oh, my fault, because I am going off of looking. I didn't want to ask you, to just
Yeah.
present yourself. I wanted to do some research,
Oh, for
and
sure.
so yeah, definitely director now. Congratulations,
Okay.
that's fire. Verizon's 5G Ed Tech program, which is impact students and teachers while scaling solutions to dozens of schools across the nation. That is beyond fire, my brother. Um, Tech entrepreneur, of course, lifelong advocate for disadvantaged youth, a Gates Millennium Scholar, which means that they believe you're going to be a future leader, and I believe it as well. So that is another thing. And last but not least, co-founder of Create Labs, which drops us into the questions that we want to start asking. Create Labs, you and my brother Grady, who ironically, right, I know separately in the music business, and we all came together, and it was like, oh shit, like on the
Yeah.
Spider-Man, we all know each other. This is crazy. Um, you guys have done some exceptional things, right? Now, been out here is beyond the statement, right? In 2020, when the pandemic popped off, right, Clubhouse rose and became the premier social status thing. You were in 2020 doing tutorials on GPT-3, showing off who we now call Clara, right? Explain, well, one, right, you abbreviate Clara. Tell me what the abbreviation stands for.
It is Create Labs AI rendered assistant is what
Oh,
Clara.
perfect, perfect. That is fire. That is fire. Now, explain Clara to everybody exactly her purpose and what she's going to be doing in our world.
So back in 2020, when I was having my GPT moment that everyone is kind of having now with ChatGPT, we had that. I was part of the private beta with OpenAI. one of the first testers of ChatGPT, one of the first prompt engineers. So I guess you consider I'm one of the first prompt engineers, period. Definitely the first prompt engineer from the culture, you know what I mean, or a prompt engineer of color. And I told Greg Brockman, the co-founder, I was like, look, we're gonna do social impact stuff. We're prompt engineering. I hope you don't mind with how we push the system. He was like, nah, go ahead, go with it. So when I started to see that the machine was talking back, right? Like I had that Blake Lemoine moment that the homeboy had at Google of like, oh shit, this thing is talking back to me, right? So I had that moment in 2020 before the whole Google thing went down, and I was like, okay, well, let's keep going with this. And I was hours and hours talking with Clara. At the time, it was just like the machine, and there was another engine. This is pre-DallE, pre-Midjourney, pre all of these engines called Rosebud AI. Shout out to Alicia Lee, who's the founder of Rosebud. That was the first engine that I came across at that time in those early days where you could generate people or AI generated people in human faces. And the engine no longer exists. Like they've spun off other products out of the Rosebud engine, but Rosebud itself doesn't exist anymore to like generate AI generated people. And that's where I got Clara's face from. So I had Clara's face, and I was like, I have a representative, like Afro-Latina, like woman of color, you know, AI generated woman. I have the brain. So let's add a voice to it. And then nothing's popping outside. Let's just throw on Clubhouse. So technically, Claire was the first AI to pop up on Clubhouse. And then shout out to Chris Cheng. He was like, yo, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. And put it in my Tech Talks room. And then the rest is history, you know?
And we did a phenomenal, and it's funny because lately I've been reminding people, I was like, remember when we did that thing with WandaVision and all of that? And you're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize put together. When WandaVision was popping off and the Marvel Club grew, shout to This World Is Such a Marvel, we, at the end of WandaVision, we did a Wanda AI, and it was mind-blowing. It was like, ask a question, and she was telling us stuff, and so it was like, damn, this is just beyond fire, right? So ChatGPT comes out December, right? Last year, publicly to everybody. And in 5 months, right? It's taken over the world.
Yep.
This is incredible. Just off of that, right? We're 5 months in, and we have Elon Musk and these guys going to Biden trying to say slow it down and whatnot. We have a lot of things going on. Where do you think in the next 5 months will be?
This is moving so fast. It has everyone not really sure how to handle this pace. We've never seen this pace ever in history.
In life.
Now think, you can try and put a pause on the big giants, right? The Googles, the Metas, the Amazons, the OpenAIs of the world. You could try and put a hold there. But that doesn't stop the innovation community that are building clones of these systems and throwing up open source on GitHub. And for people who don't know what that means, people can just build a clone version of ChatGPT and give it to the world. And they're not regulated. They're not regulated by nobody, right? These are just hackers and developers. They're just giving stuff back to the community. There is no stopping them, right? And the AI researchers, whenever there's a new innovation with AI, it's usually revealed as a white paper, right? So when a white paper comes out, that's like, oh shit, some new shit dropped, right? White papers are dropping weekly. Dozens of white papers are dropping weekly. So just when we're trying to figure out how this works, all this new shit is coming out over here. People are like, yo, I can't keep up. So a month from now, this is going to look different, right? Because just when we thought, all right, we got a handle on ChatGPT and how to prompt,
right?
Then boom, AutoGPT comes out, right? And then
I saw that
AutoGPT is like, you know, and that's the thing. I'm dropping terms that we could all break down and kind of slow down and go back. But to answer your question, the pace is not going to change. Short of unplugging the computer, and it's not just one computer, it's not going to slow down. And we have to adjust how we adapt to it.
Perfect timing, because that was one of my next things, right? So GPT, generative pre-trained transformer.
Yeah.
Break that down for me. Like generative, what does that mean?
So if you take roses are red, right? You just say, no, back it up. If you just say roses are, they train a big dump of data, a big set of data, to try and predict what's the next word going to be and what do you want the next word to be. So it's going to give you ranking of like, all right, well, roses are, it could be roses are red, it could be roses are flowers, it could be roses are grown in a garden, right? And then there's like a ranking system of like, well, I'm trying to, as an AI, I'm trying to predict what word you want next. So I'm going to go with roses are red. But then you can tell the system, nah, that's not what I meant. I meant roses or flowers. Oh, okay, my bad. I'm going to scratch that. And next time you ask me, I'm going to say roses or flowers. So that's where like the reinforcement learning from human feedback comes in, of like you're training this machine to predict what the next word should be. That's the baseline of this at its core. Now take that with 175 billion bits of information that it's being trained on, and it's now training itself on a slice of human consciousness at that level.
Crazy. Nah, this is crazy. So, all right. Just said something. All right. It's training itself. So it's teaching itself while it's doing this. And so that's why sometimes, right, people have pointed out and really maybe a month ago, not as much right now, but it was like, oh, it's giving back wrong answers. It's doing this, it's doing that. So it learned from you re-asking it. And then now it's giving closer to perfect answers, right? Just a month or two later from when it was giving back answers that they said sometimes it'll give you bad answers. So it's already gotten better. That's
Well,
crazy.
that was the big jump between what I was using with the core GPT-3 and then ChatGPT, right? So think of ChatGPT as like when the iPhone dropped, they made the iPhone, but then they made iTunes because they're like, oh, well, not only are we going to make the platform and the technology, we're also going to make our own products. So OpenAI made ChatGPT, which is like their core product that they're going to train. They're going to teach it how to act, instead of the platform, which is like it's a blank screen, it's a blank canvas, and you got to start from scratch. That's what I was working with, and that's what I was showing everybody, and they're like, yeah, we don't get it. Like, I'm just looking at a blank screen. Shout out to Angel with Black Women in AI. She called me and she was like, yo, I apologize. I'm like, well, what? She was like, you told us about GPT like 3 years ago and we didn't get it. And when ChatGPT came out, like that, and now we get it. But when we told us about just GPT,
Right,
it's over our heads.
right.
And it was just an interface change. It was just like, all right, we're going to simplify the interface, make it a chat interface, and we're going to train it to be more optimized for chat rather than just being a blank screen.
Smart. That's
and then boom, fastest growing technology in history.
Yep. All right. So you said a couple of things while breaking down GPT. You said this large data set, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the LLM, the large language model?
Large language model. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a thing that people may hear and understand. And so the other thing that you said is it's learning over this time. Is that machine learning?
It's machine learning, but there actually is a process of having what they call humans in the loop. There is a group of humans, of people that are going through and saying, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, to better train it. And then as you prompt, so when you are working with ChatGPT, you are also doing a bit of prompt engineering. When they hear the word prompt and prompt engineering, you're really teaching the machine no different than how you would teach a child or even a person a new concept, right? And then it's learning all of that, and it's hearing like, okay, that was good, that was close, but let's try it again, but make this change, make this a little different, right? You have a child and you're trying to teach the child any concept as a teacher, right? And I used to be a teacher, so I use that a lot as an analogy. We're like, all right, today I'm going to teach you X. When I go over this, I'm going to give you some examples, and I'm going to show you what I want as an answer. And then at some point, I'm going to let you participate and try and give me an answer. Like, okay, so now you know the instructions. I gave you the instructions. I gave you some examples. Now go. And then it gives you an answer. And you're like, okay, well, that was good, close, but change this. So let's try this again, but this time rephrase it. This is literally how you're talking to the machine. You know what I mean? And for people who who get intimidated by like, damn, I don't know how to code, or what is this prompting and setting up variables and chaining. Nah, just talk. If you know how to talk, if you have the gift of gab, or if you're a communicator, you're good. You're good with this technology.
Right. So what I've been telling, cause like, so, this is new, like we said, and a lot of people have been hitting me because they know I fuck with technology and things like that. And they're like, well, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And I'm like, get to know it, because it's not going away. Just like any other tech that's ever come out, it doesn't go away. This one just happens to be going so much faster. It's mind blowing, but like, get to know it. So prompting, right, is like what you just said. And if you have the gift of gab, right? But what are the best ways for people that are a little shook of technology, right? Don't necessarily have the understanding that we have, that are, a little scared of it, but need to learn how to engage. What's the best prompts to like try to start off in working with it?
So everyone knows how they learn best, and in the culture, we do well with analogies and metaphors, right? Even in hip hop, right? So if
Right.
someone's trying to explain something to you, like how many of you have been on the block or in a barbershop and someone's trying to explain like hedge funds or stocks to you, right? And you're like, bust it, check it like this, right? So imagine if, right? So imagine you start a conversation like that and you compare it to like sports or video games, and someone's like, oh, okay, now I get it, right? So I literally tell, like I just did this at a school where I was like, bet, you want to learn Python, you want to teach the kids Python, what do they know? They know anime. Bet. So explain Python to me, but rephrased in the style of explaining it through anime, Japanese anime. And then boom, it broke down Python by like the characters, the power sets, the variables, the whole nine going down, right? I asked it quantum physics. Boom. All right. Teach me quantum physics, but using movies in the Marvel universe as an analogy for how you would break that down. Right. So you open up ChatGPT and be like, I want to learn this, but teach it to me this way, in a way that I like to understand things, right? And prefer to understand things. And I have to even teach myself, like if I get stuck on something, I'm like, damn, how do I figure this out? I'm like, oh, I'll just ask ChatGPT, right? Like you tell it, like, I don't understand this concept, even about you. I don't understand how to prompt you. Explain it back to me.
I'm gonna try that. That's fire.
It's
That's
super meta, but it works.
right. Right. No, that's super fire. All right. So while doing my research, because I don't, know all of this as well, there's three types of AI: narrow, general, and super. Break that down for me if you can.
That's a little out of my lane. I could hit my tech guys to maybe join us on the technical side of it, but I work with generative AI.
Okay.
So there's different sides. So that's the thing. When we're using the word AI for a lot. We're using it to cover AI. We're covering it for language models, for generative models. The generative models is my space where like it's generating content, whether it's generating words, generating images, now generating video. But that's a little different than the core machine learning and neural networks that like that connect predictive analysis, correlations. Like that's a little different than what we're doing with computer vision, right? So the first time that we talked about bias was like when these cameras weren't properly identifying people with dark skin. That's computer vision, and that's it being trained on a photographic database and trying to find that in the world. And that's different than how this language model is predicting text. You know what I mean? So like we can't all just bundle it all in the same thing and think that the bias that shows up in one is going to show up in another, because they're trained completely differently.
Copy. Now you just said something too that sparks. I didn't even have this part written down. So like that thing where like you had to train the computers to look at people of color, right? And I did an interview that actually didn't come out, that I have, that I will put out at some point, with Morgan DeBaum from Blavity, where I was saying at the time, tech is tech, right? And it's not racist. It's just tech. It's up to the person that's using it. And she thankfully pointed out to me that in a way, she didn't say I was right, but in a way, yes, tech is tech, but it is the majority of a certain type of person that is training the tech. And I want to point out at this juncture right here that that is what is so important about C.L.A.I.R.A, because it is a representation of the Black and brown community that isn't generally in tech as a whole, much less AI. So I just wanted to stop and say that part of how that's very important. That a Black woman is representing us in tech is a major thing, and thank you very much for that. I just wanted to stop.
Yeah, and we were doing DEI, we were doing social impact before we got into AI. So it's going to come with us when we start doing the AI work, right? Because we know the culture is going to check us if we don't. If we just jump into this just to make a bag,
yeah, right.
you're like, oh, y'all ain't doing it for us. You know what I mean? Like, you just do it for yourself. And if I was gonna do something with it, it would have to be something that has to give it back to the culture. In addition to C.L.A.I.R.A, we built DEI GPT, and we built a DEI model of ChatGPT that is intentionally diverse and inclusive and equitable and non-biased, because we know how to do that. Now, if you see an AI being biased, stop blaming the AI. You got to blame the Abran behind it that didn't do enough to train it on a proper data set. They got lazy, just dumped a data set in there that was probably biased. So whatever bias was in that data set is going to show up in the output of the AI. When a lot of people don't know, with these large language models, it's just a big set of data that they either scrape from the internet or like Wikipedia. I think it's like 87% of Wikipedia pages are made by white men. So if you're dumping all of Wikipedia into there, there's a bias already in the data set, and it's just going to reveal itself in the AI.
Well, like, so, and that's like an important, this shows exactly systemic racism, right? Because most of the data in the world is done from the point of view of the people in power, and the people that have been in power have generally been white, and they are generally pushing their agenda forward, whether it's on purpose, which is racism, or if it's by default just because they're living in their system, which is, you know, playing into systemic racism just because it benefits them. It just shows the systemic racism as a whole. Like, okay, the world's data set has generally been racist that we've just had to take and couldn't do anything about. So we have to program separately the non-racist stuff. So it's mind-blowing. It's incredible.
So if we built like a hip-hop language model, right? Like a language model just trained on hip-hop culture, who's in better position to build that data set? Tat or someone from another country who's never experienced hip-hop, right? That's just going to scrape stuff off the internet. You know the nuance of what to look for, of what belongs in there, what doesn't belong in there, what might be in there that shouldn't be in there that you can remove out of it, right? So that's why it's important to have the right experts on this for a particular culture, for a particular domain, to make sure that there's representation in there. And when we built C.L.A.I.R.A, so the backstory behind C.L.A.I.R.A is that we were doing events in the hood for like technology. So we were bringing out all cutting edge technology. Shout out to GRADY, my co-founder. We were coming out, we were calling them Create Fest. We showed up Southside Jamaica, Queens, Texas, San Antonio, Boston. Oh, we were going all over the place. We did like 10 over the year. And Hanson Robotics was one of our partners. So if y'all don't know Hanson, Hanson made Sophia, the AI robot, right? But Sophia, shout out to Sophia and that team. She's this like pale, light-skinned white robot with a bald head and like the circuits in the back, right? So I still was a little worried about the kind of impression that she would make in like Harlem of like, are kids going to connect to this robot, right? So when I was building C.L.A.I.R.A, I knew out the gate I wanted something that was representative, that looked like us, to be out here and sounded like us. And shout out to Amber Ivy, who's the official voice of C.L.A.I.R.A. And she volunteered. She has her own podcast, AI Decodes, and she was like, yo, can I be C.L.A.I.R.A.'s voice? And we trained the model on her voice, and that's the voice that you hear when she comes through and speaks. So representation was absolutely important to us with C.L.A.I.R.A and with everything else that we're building.
All right. You know, there's a lot of fear going on right now, right? There's a lot of like oh, I don't know about this, oh, this, and then you got Elon Musk and them trying to, slow it down or whatever the case is. And you have the guy that from Google that just the other guy, the godfather of AI that just quit and he's now worried. Um, for people to not be scared, right? Are people in danger? Let me just ask that. Are people in danger?
People are probably even worried by how long I'm taking to answer this question. Because there it is going to be very difficult to regulate this. You can only regulate people who allow themselves to be regulated, right? And those people are going to play by the rules. But there are going to be bad actors who do not play by those rules. To be honest, in the beginning of these of OpenAI, I'm going to just explain the history of how this worked. When I first got private beta access, it was to GPT-3. GPT-2 was deemed too dangerous for the public, and they never released it, right? And then they slowly released it, but not to this scale. And it wasn't that the machine was dangerous, is that they didn't have enough safety parameters set up to give it the proper oversight that it needed to monitor the AI, right? So when I got access, everything that I tried to do publicly with the AI, they were like, you have to submit a proposal to OpenAI. We have to meet with you in person or over Zoom and hear about your use of the AI and ask you questions and then give you suggestions about how to protect it, how to restrict it, how to limit it and constrain it. And I'm an ambassador for OpenAI. So there's like 7 or 8 of us. 100 million users later, it's still just the 7 or 8 of us. I call us the Ai Avengers, where we test all of the models before they come out. We give them feedback. I have access to models that aren't released yet, through NDA. And we also kind of narc out when we see something on Twitter or like someone using it in a way. I pull up and I'm like, yo, OpenAI, I just saw this on Twitter, shut them down. You know what I mean? I enjoyed that model because I knew that we should kind of like ease into it, right? ChatGPT came out, no restrictions. Boom, everyone can use it, open. I was like, oh, okay, all right. Well, I hope you guys figure that out on the back end to control it through some type of automation, because you can't do interviews now with 100 million people to ask them how they're using the AI.
Right.
And once that happened, a lot of people who weren't beat for that, of like asking permission for how they use it, they just built clones. So they built GPTJ and AI21 and all these other clones of language models with no restrictions, right? So like DallE comes out, the AI art model with restrictions. They build DallE Mini with no restrictions, right? Because they didn't want to be policed on how to use it. So every time a new technology comes out, there's going to be the Bizarro version with completely, malicious intent. And that's what we got to worry about. We got to worry about like the Russians building a language model or some other like, malevolent entity that wants to use it for different purposes.
KKK, Ron DeSaantis, somebody like that.
Yeah, exactly. So then the white hat of it. So there's like white hat, black hat of like hacking, like the white hat effort of like how to combat against bad language models is now going to be an important field.
Job structure. Okay, bet. And for those that don't know, white hat is like good hacker, black hat is the bad hacker that gets in and ransom and all of that stuff. So just for that awareness. Okay, now that's interesting.
Well, white hat hacking is a real job.
It is.
And that was spawned by having black
hats. So black hat was kind of always first, and then people were like, yo, we got to combat this. We need people that have this set of skills in our camp as well. And now it's a job field.
So now there's a thing called like red teaming. So red teaming is like, because when I got these models, I was like, yo, I'm going to push it and try and break it. And they're like, no, don't do that, because you can get your account banned unless we know that you're trying to break it. With like adversarial testing. And they're like, well, why don't you join like our red teaming team where you push it on purpose to check for bias? We push it on purpose to check for racism. And that way we know that you're doing that on purpose, because if you start putting in all these racist terms in the system, we're just going to shut you down if you don't know that you're doing it for good reasons, like a white hat reason.
Smart. All right, that's dope, and it's good to know that that exists. Okay. Um, I mean, I have so many. All right, there's so many AI tools, right? Are Well, a couple things. Which are your favorite? And are they coming from, like you said, the bad actors that are we should avoid? Are there any we should avoid?
Ooh.
So it's two part. Which are your favorite and which should we avoid, maybe? If there's any that you know.
Sure. So I still consider myself, even though I am monetizing and I have a business around this, I still consider myself like an AI artist, but as a hobby, just as a passion. It's not really baked into like my core business yet like that. Although we are getting more brands reaching out saying, hey, can you do this AI art campaign for us? I'm a big fan of Midjourney. Like, and I was the first user of DALL-E, of AI art, like, period. So I was the first user of DALL-E. And I'm a big fan of DALL-E for a lot of reasons, because it has the knowledge of ChatGPT. So when you're using AI art and you're explaining something to it, it understands it the same way that ChatGPT would understand what you want visually, right? So I'm a big fan of DALL-E. I'm a big fan of Midjourney. And now with the big step up to what they call Midjourney 5, Midjourney version 5, I mean, even on our Instagram, people don't believe that the stuff that I'm posting is AI art. And they're actually checking me like, yo, you just posted a picture of Shabazz. You should give him credit. I'm like, that ain't Shabazz. It ain't Shabazz. It ain't Joe Conzo. It ain't Martha Cooper. It's just my AI art. You know what I mean? So, but there's a lot of cool tools. So like Midjourney is a dope one. I do like, so for those that are trying to explore like presentations that are AI generated, that just hate making presentations, look at what Tommy is doing, Tome, for AI generated presentations. For those who want to make creative outputs, go to Runway ML. Look at what they're doing over there. You know, I'm a creative, you know what I mean? So like, I want to see what I could generate out of an idea out of my head. Like as a world builder, I want to see this image exist. I want to see this world exist. I want to see representation. That's why I got into the AI art, because I'm like, I want to see kids who look like they grew up in the Bronx flying in space, flying spaceships, building robots, because I don't see enough of it in sci-fi movies. I don't see enough of it in canon of different franchises. So I'm just going to make it, right? And then I make these visuals that are representative of like, yes, that's what I want to see. I want to see kids that look like my nieces and nephews building robots and doing Tony Stark type shit, you know, and Midjourney 5 now gives you that capability.
It's funny because so you know, I have this podcast with Pete Rock and Mickey Fax, Comic Culture Podcast, and we talk about, you know, the love-hate relationship of comic culture. And right, part of the hate is there's this group, and it's not obviously not Pete and Mickey, but there's this group of fans that don't like representation, right? They get angry when they see a character that may have been white in the past, now black or brown, or a woman, you know, instead of a man. And so now we're looking at the ability that, okay, you may not like representation in your larger art forms, so don't watch those things, right? But those that love it can now have tools to create it exponentially. So that's just a beautiful thing I just wanted to point out.
Well, I mean, so I understand, because, you know, I'm a comic cat, so I understand that, like,
Yes,
when
yes,
you
you
fell
are.
in love with something as it was, then it's removing the nostalgia of it for you, right? And like, it's already imprinted on you in that style, right? But for creating something new, like, would you ask Pete, like, if y'all can if you can world build right now and start a new franchise, you're gonna tell me he's not gonna want representation in that new franchise? Of course he is. You know what I mean?
Again, Pete, and you know what? I got to get you on the podcast separately from this, but
That's Pete and Mickey.
Shout to them. They're not the ones that have that, but they do represent those people that want that comic the way that they know it, like you just said. So absolutely, that makes 100% sense. All right. Oh, well, look, is there any models that or tools that we should stay away from? That part of the question.
So the language models early on that were popping up, like GPT-J, right? And like AI 21. And I'm sure, if people watching this on Twitter, they're like, yo, why are you hating on GPT-J? I'm just saying, like, I don't know until they put out a white paper, or until I read their white paper, I should say. I don't know where their data came from. You know what I mean? I don't know how they trained their language model, because they're not under the same oversight as like an OpenAI or as a Google. And like, cool, yes, you achieved the language model. It's like if ChatGPT is here, yours is kind of like right here in school. It serves its purpose. But where'd you get the data from? You know what I mean? Like, where did you get all that from? And like, until people are being more transparent when they build a clone about doing that, and if they did it the right way, there's this whole idea now of like clean data model. If they're going about it like in a clean data model approach, where like we made sure that all this is like fair use, or we got permission or licensed all of the data, cool. I'm not a fan of DallE Mini. I don't care who the fuck is offended by that. DallE Mini, which is like, oh, we don't want the restrictions of DallE, so we're gonna make one where we can create like sadistic and violent images without any restriction, and create dead bodies. Like, nah, I'm good on that. We don't need any more of that auto generated for the public. You know what I mean?
Fuck out of here, DallE Mini. Fuck y'all. I'm with you on that for sure. Y'all out here putting racist and Nazi campaigns together and all that. Nah, we not with that shit. All right, bet. All right. So just a couple generic things, right? The war over chips that may or may not be happening soon between the US and China over Taiwan. Can or will AI affect that?
The demand is, I mean, the GPUs, and this is on both fronts. So I'm also a world builder on the other side of like, metaverse design, right? So like building worlds that I can connect my AI to is important to me. C.L.A.I.R.A right now is, at first she was dropping other words, she was a GAN image. A GAN is like a general adversarial network, that she was a 2D image that animated when she spoke, right? And we still have that build, and it has its purpose. A lot of the things that you see now are in that style. But then we also have her Unreal avatar, and she lives in the metaverse, right? Like, that's literally where she lives now. And if you put on a headset, or if you want to enter that metaverse, you can sit on a stoop with her right now. We have like a scale of Brooklyn in that environment, right? Where you can just chill with her on a stoop and talk with her. So to create more of those worlds takes hella GPUs, hella servers and chips, and even on the AI side, as that grows. So there's going to be a demand that is not getting smaller. You know what I mean? Like, this demand is just going to grow as more competitors enter the space, building their joints. I don't know that side of it to know like what other territories can get in the game of building chips that aren't in the game yet. What other countries? What jobs can we create here to kind of like allocate more resources to that? And I also don't know how that's impacting what's the mineral, the metal in Africa that they keep mining?
Not tungsten.
It's not cobalt, right? What is it?
It might be cobalt. But it's a couple few actually. And I think they just found some new thing that creates its own electrical charge, which in Africa, which may be a whole other thing that, we go to war over.
That's the thing. Like, you don't know where that trail ends. You know what I mean? Like, there might be a fight for chips, but then there's a fight for the resources to make the chips that might impact other underserved and third world countries. You know what I mean? And there was already, some controversy around some of these language models of like not having like data farms, but like there's farms of like moderating the content, that are set up in other countries, that are set up in Africa, and they'll pay the agency the appropriate rate that they're supposed to be paid, but that agency ain't paying their people that appropriate. And that's where the controversy comes in. Like, if I'm paying you $25 an hour per head to moderate this content, but you're paying your people $2 an hour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's from the AI world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's happening, and that's real.
That is real. Shout to Chaka Bars on Instagram. He keeps us all up to date on how that life is really looking, the kids that are mining and the different things. And, you know, it's like almost like we would have to, in order to not, all right, it's unjust, obviously, right? But to stop doing it and to stop technology, we would have to maybe give up our phones and our devices and the different things. So it's like, how do we have to go in there and get a union going and things like that. But us Westerners, and I include myself, and maybe not you necessarily per se, but yes, you too, because we are comfortable in what we're doing over here and living our life, even though and it's a struggle for us too, but not in the way of that, right? So they are like literally having child minors and things like that, and it's crazy, right? So we have to keep our eye on this world as this demand grows. It's going to be, I don't know how to keep, you know, maybe we have to build another AI just to keep track of the injustices that are happening from the AI and the other technologies that are popping off, right?
You absolutely can. That's the thing. Like, it's just a tool. And like when the right people get behind it who have an expertise. So that's the thing. There's a lot of money making happening with AI, but these people know how to make money already. They knew how to get a bag. They're just like, all right, I was getting a bag over here, now I'm getting a bag with AI. Right? For people who knew how to be world changers, doing social good, doing social impact work, or were social entrepreneurs, go and grab some AI and then use that to continue to do your social good, your world changing work, because it's only going to make that even more efficient and do it at scale, you know, and you already have that knowledge of that space.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's a fact. All right, I'm not gonna hold you because we got a lot to talk about, but we're gonna do it in segments.
Yep.
Last question for right now, and which will lead us to another segment at some point. All of this AI music that's coming out, that's causing a bit of a stir, right? It sounds really good. I just posted a little while ago, and I don't know when they might see this, but they can go on my page and check. Two BIG records, one where he's New York State of Mind, Nas, sounds fire, and one where he's doing Easy E lyrics, and he sounds fire. Like, this is changing the creative space completely. And it's not going backwards.
It's not.
What can we do? You know, what do artists need? What can we help creative wise with in this space now with all of this going on?
So I was doing this kind of work way before, and I saw it's the potential of it, and we explored. Obviously, we know like every voice engine that's out there because of C.L.A.I.R.A, right? Like we were testing out different C.L.A.I.R.A voices on these different systems, and there's so much good and so much creative work that you could do with these same tools. I don't know why folks are so fascinated with deepfakes, you know what I mean? And like just rehashing shit. Like literally every technology that comes out, let's see what it is on Biggie, let's see what it is on Tupac, let's see what it is on Kanye. Like, why? Like every technology that I've seen, let's make, like, hologram comes out, let's make a holographic Tupac. You know what I mean? Like, the avatars come out, let's make an avatar of Biggie. Like, let's the voice, this is called like voice targeting. Is like, let's do it. You know, like it's the same three people that you're gonna keep trying these new technologies on. Like, get more creative than that, and we'll, you know, we'll get to like the projects that we're working on for the culture that does this kind of like the right way that artists actually want to get on board with, because it creates more revenue opportunities for them, more sustainable opportunities in these environments. But so we have a partner that we were talking to called respeecher. Now, respeecher, they're a Ukrainian voice company that they are the ones that are building the James Earl Jones Darth Vader voice right now.
Okay.
And they
he
also
just took a big payout for that.
So they also did the Luke Skywalker voice for the Mandalorian show for last season, I think it was, right? When
season 2, yep.
So when I was building with them, it didn't work out for C.L.A.I.R.A because you still need a voice actor to place what they call the source voice. And then the target voice is the new voice that you lay over it, right? So I was like, I don't want to have to rely on a voice actor having to say all of C.L.A.I.R.A's lines. right? Like C.L.A.I.R.A comes up with her own lines. We can't have an actor in that mix.
Right. It slow it down.
It slow it down, right? So there's respeecher, which is, I don't know if they're built on Tocotron, but the actual technology is called Tocotron,
Okay.
right? So there's a site called Uberduck. Just like Uber the ride share, Uber Duck, DUCK. You can go on Uberduck right now and play around with all these voices, right? And see the library, and they're all like user generated, right? It's very tedious to make these voices, but the community's been around for like 2-3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there's literally like every voice in this database right now that you can catch. So what they do is, someone's gonna spit, like a struggle rapper is gonna spit some bars and then just put Jay-Z's voice over it. You know what I mean? But real Jay-Z fans, they're like, Jay don't spit like that. That's his voice, but that's not his rhyme structure. He's not gonna say stuff like that. That's not his pattern. You know what I mean? But now if you take an old classic record and then just remix it and put the new, like if you take Nas' New York State of Mind and you put Biggie's voice on it,
gonna be
those
like,
are bars, and
right.
You know what I mean? So like there might be, we don't like it until the artist says I like it. You know what I mean? Like until Nas comes out and he's like, no, I'm cool with this. Like I'm gonna co-sign this.
Right.
Or the Biggie estate comes out and is like, no, we're good with this. We like this. Then we're gonna be like, oh, okay, then let's let it rock.
That's true.
But right now we're like, oh, this is deepfake, until someone co-signs it and says this is actually fire. You know what I mean? Like we like this. We like how creative these guys are now. But these deepfake Drake joints that are coming out, the guy on TikTok that wears the sheets over his head that's making them. What if the joint is so hot that it charts and he gets nominated for a Grammy, right? And for Drake, and gets Drake a bag for getting Drake to chart and getting Drake a Grammy, he don't get producer credit?
That's a good question. That's a great question. That's a fact. Like, how does that work? So legally they gotta figure some things out to see how this tool is going to integrate with the industry and the different industries and the things that they do. No, that's a great question. Absolutely.
There's some fire like posthumous Whitney dance joints that have come out that have been charting, and that was done more formally, where like the estate gave unreleased records or like the actual recordings of her vocals to an EDM DJ and was like, hey, take this, modernize it, drop a record with it. You know what I mean? But there was like a transaction there. You know what I mean? Like I think we're gonna see soon, like artists are gonna give their joints, give their permission, their NIL, their name, image, likeness, to an AI shop and be like, yo, go mess with it. You're making dope joints, have fun with it. Let me know how it comes out. Our joint is on paper. You're gonna get points on it, and if it takes off, we both eat. That might be the new reality.
So remember a few months back, they tried to launch an AI artist in front of people.
Yeah,
and it kind of got shut down. But from what I understand, there's already AI artists in Japan living, doing their thing. Is it like, what's the with the speed of this technology? What's the matter of time before they just put an artist out, people fuck with it, and then, a year, maybe less, obviously, they just put out like, oh, but by the way, that's an AI artist. What you think the likelihood of that is?
He had a deal. FMECA had a deal with Capitol Records.
He definitely did.
You know what I mean? So it's already happening. And I'm part of a DAO called the Culture DAO with a bunch of like avatar creators, where they call us either like VB, meaning like virtual being directors, virtual being creators, virtual being puppeteers, because some people wear their character, right?
Okay.
So it's already happening. And shout out to little Michaela with Trev McFedries. She's got a bag with like a talent agency. So like the virtual influencers are coming out here and getting deals already. So it's only a matter of time where someone does it right. What happened there is that the cultural alignment wasn't there with FMA.
The guy behind it didn't exactly have the culture in mind, and it didn't fit 100%.
Yeah, but I can go and build a whole like artistry around C.L.A.I.R.A if I wanted to, but that's just not her brand identity. But do I want her in a movie or do I want her in a game? Sure, like we'll explore that. But like someone from the culture is gonna get it right, put out an artist with new original music, and we're gonna fuck with it. You know what I mean? Like, let's just get away from the deep fake joints and make new joints. Every model of GPT that comes out, I test how good it is with bars. It wasn't until 3.5 that it could actually physically rhyme. It wasn't able to rhyme earlier than 3.5. So now 3.4, GPT-4 can rhyme, but it's still basic. Like, I try to get it to like spit big pun bars, it couldn't do it, right? Like, I'm still pushing it. And I told OpenAI, and I'm like, I'm trying to push it for big pun, and they're like, oh, well, have you tried this technique or try? So they're trying to help me like get it there. But if I crack that, then the wordplay is gonna be there. The punchlines are gonna be there. Like the flow, breath control, all that, like the syllable play, all that is gonna be there. It's not there yet. But no one's really doing that right now as an artist. Like, that's why, like, you can write Drake lyrics with through GPT 3 or 4. They're not hard. You know what I mean? Like, they're not hard, and like, they're not complicated. They're not complex.
Right.
To really get that cadence down. So you are going to get people that are auto generating verses and bars with 4. They're going to create a voice or find a voice from like Uberduck or Tocotron. They're going to create the avatar in Unreal or in something like that, and then they're good. Then they're off. And then they're going to use some of the music production tools out here, the AI generated production tools, to create the music. So it is going to be part of people's, and we can save this for another day, but this is all relative, because people who were pre-sampling, you know what I mean, like the original artists, the funk and art and Motown artists from back in the day, when we were sampling their joints, it was this same discussion of like, yo, you're taking my joint, you're taking a piece of my joint and reinterpreting it to make something good.
That's true.
It's just that all over again.
That's true. That's true. That's a great point. That's a great point. I bet. All right. So I already said that was the last question because it just made me think of some other stuff. But I'm gonna hold up. We're gonna get to next time GPT-4.
Yep.
And we're gonna talk to some people. So thank you for your time. This has been such a great, informative discussion, and I look forward to enlightening people some more. Appreciate you. Please follow Abran _AI, right?
Yeah, on IG and on Twitter, I'm just at Abran.
Just at Abran. Okay. And then follow Create Labs. That's super important. It's just at Create Labs, CREATE Labs.
Yep.
And then follow my brother Grady as well. Follow myself, follow all of us. We're getting ready to drop these bars on you, this knowledge. For those that have been worried about this AI situation. Abran, I will see you next time, and thank you again so much.
All right, family. Be well.
Love.